Hi, Justin here, or New England Aquarist. I'm here to answer the big question. Do you need CO2 in your planted aquarium? Do you need it? No. Will it make your life a whole lot easier? Absolutely. Is it worth every penny? Absolutely. If you want your plants to thrive in an aquarium, having CO2 will bring your game from here to there. I'm going to explain pricing, setup, why you need it, and why some people say you don't need it. Okay? We'll start with why some people say you don't need it. There's plenty of plants that are hardy and they thrive, and you don't need it. You just need a decent light, and they live. They don't really grow fast, but they live, like Java fern. I had dwarf hairgrass in a tank without CO2, and it lived, but it didn't really carpet. It took a long time. So outdoors, above ground plants, they need air to breathe, carbon dioxide, and they put out oxygen. That's how they eat. Aquatic plants are very similar. Aquatic plants can thrive above water for that reason, because they like air and they like the gases. Injecting CO2 into your tank, this is a regulator here, injecting CO2 into your tank just makes everything easier. The plants love it. They grow faster, they grow better. It takes your game to the next level. So, I could get into fertilization, all scientific. I'm not going to get into that. A lot of people are worried about the price. Is it worth it? Is it not? I swear it's worth it. If I want a tank that's going to look great in photos, that I'm going to show off beautiful plants to, why not? So this here is called the Aquatek Mini. This goes right on, screws right onto a paintball tank. So you have a 20-ounce paintball tank. You go to your sporting goods store and they fill it up for $4 or $5. It lasts about 3 months. Mine lasts on a 7-gallon tank. And this screws directly onto it. This right here is $70 on eBay and $90 on Amazon for some reason. It goes right onto the paintball tank. I'll open it up for you and show you what it is, what you're gonna need. So, this is it right here. Screws right on, right underneath, right to the paintball tank. If you buy a bigger CO2 regulator, they don't fit onto paintball tanks, but you could buy an adapter. This is better for smaller tanks and just fits on perfectly. This has a solenoid, which means it could turn on and off on a timer. If you don't have a solenoid, it won't work on a timer. And it just stays on forever. So this is the Aquatek Mini. Okay? This hole right here is where you put your CO2 tubing. Some people use regular air tubing, but CO2 tubing is made specifically. It can hold the pressure, it won't leak. Sometimes it'll pop off if you use silicone tubing. I would buy regular CO2 tubing. So we're at $70 for this. The tubing is going to cost you about $15. A bubble counter. This here is a bubble counter. Comes with it. You fill this up with water. You put the tubing from this to the bottom of this, and then from this into your tank. So this is going to be running bubbles. You're going to see bubbles come on. Boom, 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 boom. That's how you know how much CO2 is coming in. If it's going pop, 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 it's probably too much CO2. If it's boop, 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 it's not enough. Okay? So, a good rule of thumb is 1 bubble per second on tanks, 15 gallons or less. 1 bubble per second. You could boost it up a little bit, but you could gas your fish and they could die. Don't be alarmed. you most likely won't do it. That's another reason why you want to get a good quality regulator, because cheap regulators that I don't recommend, it'll be doing 1 bubble per second, and then all of a sudden the timing comes off and it's going real fast or real slow. You want to have something that has consistent timing and stays where you set it. After you hook that up to the bubble counter, you're going to be feeding that to a CO2 diffuser. I'm going to show you that later on in the video. That diffuses the CO2 into the tank. You want to run it underneath your filter outflow, so the CO2 bubbles are circulating and getting saturated. You don't want them to just rise up and pop. It won't saturate the water with CO2 enough. To know if you have enough CO2 in your aquarium, they have something called a drop checker. You might have seen it. It's a little glass ball that you fill with this blue liquid, and you put it inside your tank, and the blue liquid doesn't go into your water. I'll show you that later in the video as well. When it's blue, it means that there's not enough CO2. When it's green, it's perfect. If it's light green, that's good too. If it starts to turn yellow, that means there's too much CO2 and you could turn it down. That's how you can tell if you have enough CO2 in your tank. So we have $70 for this. A paintball tank, 20 ounces, on Amazon's about $20. So now let's just say we're at $90. The tubing's $15, so we're at $105. And you get a CO2 regulator for $15. You could get more expensive ones, but the cheaper ones work good too. The more expensive ones give you finer bubbles for better CO2 saturation. They're like atomizers, but there's plenty of good ones out there. So you're under $150. You're about $125 for everything you need. And I guarantee your plants are going to thank you for it. You're going to have a beautiful tank with beautiful plants, and $125 to have a beautiful tank. You spend so much money on everything else, the filter, the lighting, the soil, the plants itself. Why not just go the extra mile and do it right? So that's why I have CO2 in my tanks. It makes a world of difference, and that's really the difference between CO2 and not. You can grow plants without CO2. You also have to be very good and keep an eye on it. But when you have the CO2, they grow faster, they flourish, and it also prevents algae, because when your plants are growing at a faster rate, there's no room and no nutrients left over for that algae to grow. Algae grows when your plants aren't growing fast enough, when there's excess nutrients in the water, excess waste. When your plants are flourishing and getting a nice breath of CO2, they're growing fast and they're taking all that waste up. And when your plants are generating fast, algae can't grow on them. So all in all, CO2 will make your tank prettier and cleaner. I'm now going to show you my tank with my CO2 setup, the same exact one, so you can see it in action. Thank you very, very much for tuning in. If you have any questions, feel free. I know I could have skipped a ton of scientific stuff, but if you have any questions, let me know. If you want to know about maintenance, water changes, fertilizers, let me know. There will be more to come, more tutorials. If you haven't already, check out New England Aquarist on Instagram and YouTube. Subscribe, follow. I would appreciate it. And thank you so much for sticking with me.
on my time.